Hey, fifth grade. I'm going to try to record today with the door open so my pets can come and go. So you might hear some clicking of Miss Sophia's heels, and Mr. Shadow and William Powell might hop up here and there. So I'm just going to go with it and hope they'll be fine. But that's what's going on. And I hope you're well. We are going to go on to our next chapter in The Keeping Room by Anna Myers. And I was really excited looking online last night. They have a whole bunch of authors that are doing read-alouds. And I know that we read The Jumbies by Tracy Baptiste earlier this year, and she's one of the people doing some read-alouds. So if you do a Google search for Tracy Baptiste read-aloud, she's going to be talking about all those Jumbies or those creatures that we learned about, and I thought you might like that. So check it out. And I also put a link to my blog, so I will try to remember to add the link for that other one there too, but that's another great place to look. I have some resources on the American Revolution there and some other really fun reads. There's Always News ELA, that's a great source for reading, and I was poking around there last night as well looking at some of the articles they have, and they have a whole bunch of articles about women during the Revolution and different people not sure which side they were going to support. So there's a great article I put on my blog, so feel free to check that out. And I'm excited. Let's get into this chapter. So take my sip of coffee. Yeah. All right. Let's do this. So this is chapter 7 of The Keeping Room. Dear Father. Oh, before we start, remind yourself a little bit about how he's changed. What did he see last time? What was his experience? Because there's a big change in Joseph moving forward in the book. You remember? So he went to visit his father in prison. He was really scared before he went in, and then he saw his father. His father's getting taken away to the prison ship to be taken to an island prison. And as he's leaving, he feels a little bit more proud and like he's stronger as he's going. So when he got back to his house and they were hanging people in the garden, he found the son of one of the other prisoners that he met, and he, instead of looking away and hiding while they were being hanged, he made sure that he was watching. And so he feels like he's had some big changes. So we'll see how that affects him as a person. Chapter 7. Dear Father, I am changed. Yes, I am still afraid, but I am more angry. I have stood beside the gallows and watched our men die. The slaves are all gone except Cato and Biddy. Cato says they're probably hiding in the woods. When I said to Biddy that I appreciate how she did the right thing and did not run away, she laughed. Then she said, Master Joey, you sure don't understand very much. Not very much at all. So another perspective is going to be of the enslaved people. So when he says they did the right thing to stay, why do you think Biddy laughed? Do you think that their idea of the right thing is the same as his idea of the right thing? So they're people being forced into service, into conditions, and all their freedoms are taken away. Why do you think Biddy decided to stay? And during war, they're going to have a chance to see some changes, but I think the next book we're going to do for Read Aloud will give us a perspective from from a woman who is enslaved, her point of view. Chains is excellent, so I think I might do that one next. But yeah, it's really interesting and telling that Joey is just saying, oh, you did the right thing, and she's looking at him like, okay. Now it's my habit to rise early, leaving Mother and the others still sleeping. I slip from our room and head for the upstairs veranda. From there I can see the town. I look each day for some change, something that might give me hope. I notice, too, the natural things that have always been part of my world, but that are more dear to me now because I am a prisoner. The July sun is already hot. The early morning fog has been burned away, except along the Water Tree River. There's a cornfield tall and green. Carolina corn, I say, growing near the river. I find strength in the corn and the river with its fog. I do not keep my eyes turned towards the river. Instead, I look back towards the town. What I see makes me shiver despite the sun. 5 men are being carried. Oh, that was Mr. Shadow shaking the camera. So you guys met him before, and he loves to explore. And so he was trying to run, but his little kitty foot got stuck on the cord. He's so funny. All right. 5 men are being carried up the hill on litters. So kind of like a like 2 poles on each side and then a piece of canvas supporting someone who can't walk. I know even before I recognize the big scarred guard that the soldiers are victims of smallpox. The horrible disease is coming towards us. As if I could protect my family, I run back inside. My mother is up now, and she too is watching the procession. I go to stand beside her at the window. The little quarters in the back, I whisper. That must be where they're headed. But why? They have not carried other injured men here. Mother turns then and studies my face. You know, don't you, Joey? There's no use trying to hide the truth. Smallpox, I say. My mother gasps, but then we are quiet, watching. When she speaks, she is calm. The poor creatures. She slips her arm through mine. You must not go near them, not under any circumstances. I nod my agreement, but I have spotted the old soldier who wanted so much to know about his son. His arm hangs over the side of the litter as he's passed under my window. He's still alive, I think, and still wondering about his boy. I will find it difficult to keep my word to my mother. Later in the day, I do receive one bit of good news. Ewan is indeed coming for lessons. I go to the keeping room, and while I wait for him at the round table, I write a letter. The great doors are closed with a British guard posted in front of them outside. Ewan will pass through the front door and come down the stairs. I keep my eyes in that direction and leap to my feet when I see his boots. Then his head comes into sight. It's bent because the doorway at the bottom of the stairs is not high. Ewan, I say, will you help me? I grab the letter I've written and hold it out to him. What's this? A letter. It's to Mistress Jenkins out by Sanders Creek about her son, James. Ewan's face grows somber as he reads my words about how James thought of his mother just before he died and asked me to see that she knew of his fate. I wrote, too, of how he stood tall on the gallows and how I stayed to watch until it was over. You expressed yourself well, he says, and your hand has improved. He gives the letter back to me. I scowl, impatient, that Ewan wishes to discuss penmanship, evaluating my letter as a teacher when I've asked for his help. Perhaps he does not understand. But how can I have the message delivered? Why not ask Captain Harkins? Obviously, Ewan has taken leave of his senses. Harkins? You suppose a redcoat will aid me? He shrugs and takes his seat, ready for the lesson. Only a redcoat can pass through the lines. Besides, they're not all monsters. I pound my fist on the table. Have you not seen the gallows? Do you not know of any men who've been hanged in my mother's side garden? One Matthew Murphy was my boyhood friend who turned from our Quaker ways. I see grief in his eyes, and I think I'm about to make my point. Have we not read, it is the dead who make the longest demands? Slowly he nods his head. Thee are right, Matthew's death demands me to stand for peace. I'm too furious to speak, and without looking at Ewan, I drop to my chair, where I slump and lean against the table. So, seeing all these deaths, Joey is saying that people should fight, they should rise up and join the war effort. But Ewan, with his Quaker beliefs, is saying this is all the more reason to be at peace and to refuse to fight. So 2 different perspectives, and we might try to think about how the Quaker faith is going to be viewing the war and how Joey is seeing it as we keep going. Oh, Mr. Shadow's back. Come here. Come here, little boy. Hey. Yes. Oh, here he is, the one who knocked our camera. And then Miss Sophia came in too. That's so fun. All right, we'll keep reading. There are other soldiers out there who need letters. Written perhaps. Captain could arrange for thee to write them. He smiles. Doubtless he would be more quick to agree with thee also to serve those British soldiers who cannot read or write. I let out an angry snort. Never. I'll never be a friend to a redcoat. Ewan opens the geometry book and begins our lesson. A small smile moves across his lips. I think that he's amused to have used the hated geometry to end our discussion. When lessons are over and Ewan is gone, I do not leave the keeping room. Instead, I linger at the table, studying the wood box. The British cook accepts my filling of it each day, probably thinking I've been assigned the task. I long to move the logs, to hold the gun in my hands for just a moment. No one is in the keeping room except me. I rise and walk to the box. Surely it would not hurt just to touch the pistol, to reassure myself that it is real and that one day I will use my father's pistol to strike back. But someone is coming down the stairs. It's Captain Harkins who appears. He looks at me and smiles his greeting as if I had never made the comment about the use of my name. I feel anger growing inside me. Does he think me only a child whose rage can be forgotten the next day? I force down such thoughts. There's no way to have this letter delivered except through Captain Harkins. I take the letter from the table and hold it out to him. I wrote this for a soldier who was hanged yesterday. Is there hope it could be delivered? You are asking a favor of me, a man whom you despise. He does not sound hateful. I tell myself that if I'm nice to him, I may get my way, but I can only come out with, I ask for the dead soldier and his mother, who is all alone. He smiles. I have a mother. It shall be delivered. Captain Harkins moves past me towards the big doors at the front. There's more, he glances back, and I blurt out my request. I seek permission to write letters for other soldiers and to have them delivered or posted. He raises his eyebrows and begins to tap the front of his boot against the brick floor. That is a request I cannot promise will be granted. I swallow hard. I'm willing to write for your men as well. Well, he says, in such a case we might just be able to reach an agreement. I will speak of the request to my superior. Thank you. I turn towards the stairs and then dash up them as quickly as possible. And so I become a scribe. Captain Harkins has arranged it for me. The first letter was for the dying David Wilson. Mindful of my mother's request, I sat just outside the open door, where I strained to catch his words, and wrote the message to his wife and daughters at home. My sons all be soldiers, he told me. Oldest four marched off after we come in from the field one day to find thieving redcoats had took our cow and calf, pigs too, and bags of grain. Rob, he was the youngest. So as the soldiers are going to be traveling across the 13 colonies in battle, they're not going to be necessarily getting enough food that they need to survive, and people on both sides are going to decide that it's worth their survival to steal from the people that live there. And the British soldiers stole from this person, and so that's what got them to join the fight. And so as we look at the different people we meet, their reasoning for joining one side or the other is going to be helpful for us to understand the different perspectives. There are going to be a lot of people that are not going to want any part of the war, but if you have someone stealing your property or hurting you, you might feel a little bit pushed to one side to support. We begged him out of going with his brothers, but we couldn't hold him long. He was determined, like he was to run the British out of Carolina. When his time come, I up and went by his side. He rested for a moment and then went on. I pray the others yet live. You watch for the Wilson boys, will you, lad? You watch for my sons. When I came next to the outbuilding, David Wilson was no more. The others died quickly too, as I'm sure the British planned they should. Now the building stands empty, a reminder of the horrors of smallpox. Even though I never entered the quarters, I scrubbed myself in an outside tub after each time of going close. There would be for me no desire to live if somehow I carried smallpox upstairs to my mother or to the little ones who throw their arms about my legs and squeal greetings when I enter. So we can draw some parallels between today, why we are staying separate and quarantined right now, because we want to protect other people. If you're younger, you have a much stronger immune system, and you might be fine, but we want to be really careful not to carry it to older people or people with compromised immune systems. So it's the same for me whenever I go to the store to get things for my dad. I make sure that I use hand sanitizer, I wash my hands a whole bunch, and I keep my distance from other people. And so it's really interesting that we could be reading a book during the American Revolution a really long time ago and find some comparisons to today. So smallpox then, coronavirus now. Mary has joined my letter writing efforts. I thought it too dangerous for a girl child, but Mary pleaded. Mother surprised me by giving her consent. This war has changed us all, Joey, she said, and she put down her needlework to draw both Mary and me to her. You too, I know, can never be children again. At first, Mary disliked writing for the Redcoats as much as I do, but of late I have seen her smile at some of the British. Today I brought my bag of completed letters into the keeping room to leave for Captain Harkins' post. Mary is reading a letter to a British soldier who sits at the table. He is the military cook whom Biddy now assists. I hear him groan, and turning, I see that he has leaned his head on the big table. Mary is up now, and she pats him gently on the shoulder. I'm sorry, she says gently. Just so awful sorry, Sergeant Glenn. For one frightening moment, I think she's going to embrace the redcoat. I drop my letters on the shelf. Mary, I say sternly, Mother wishes to see you upstairs at once. I stomp up the stairs, but it's a few minutes before my sister follows me, and I know she has lingered with the sergeant. When I open the door to our room, I hear my mother laugh, and it's a sound I had not expected to hear, and I am shocked. Biddy and Mother sit at a tiny table in the corner. They drink tea, and I catch a phrase or two of the story Biddy is telling about a redcoat chasing a chicken in an effort to kill it. Mother and Biddy are both enjoying the tale. I pause just inside and get right to my business. Mother, something must be done about Mary. I have just seen her trying to comfort a redcoat. I turn to close the door, but my sister is there, panting. The poor man's son has just been killed, fighting in New York. She reaches back to slam the door with her foot. Mother, you did not ask me to come up here as Joey claimed, did you? Mary moves towards George and almost tumbles over Sarah and George, who are on the floor building with blocks. You should forbid her to talk to them if she's going to become friendly with the filthy... I'm about to use a word Mother would not like me to use. I swallow. I think Mary is too young to be among the enemy. Mother flashes a frown at me. Hush, Joey, she says. Then she turns to Mary. What is the problem here? I read Sergeant Glenn a letter from his wife, sending him word of his son's death. Joey, surely you cannot object to your sister showing compassion, Mother says. They are the enemy, I shout. I pray they will all die. Oh, Joey, no, Mother's voice is more sad than angry. Poor man, adds Biddy. He be often talking of that boy. They've joined together against me. I shrug my shoulders. Waste your sympathy if you choose, but I'll save mine for my countrymen who are hanged beneath our window. Redbirds, blackbirds, all birds love their baby birds just the same, says Biddy. I'm tempted to comment that if my father were here, she would not be sitting drinking tea with the mistress, but I am not foolish enough to push Mother too far. So what is going on with Joey? Why is he totally freaking out and yelling at everyone? What does he dislike about Mary comforting that man who just lost his son? So one of the hard things about war is that it's easier for us to have in our head, this is the enemy, these are the people on our sides, but on both sides there's humans, and people have families, people have people they care about, and his sister is showing compassion and care. Do you think that's right, or do you think she shouldn't be showing care? Maybe jot that down, what your answer is in your notebook. And what is it about Biddy, the enslaved woman, sitting and having a cup of tea with his mom that makes him so angry? What does he view as wrong there? Do you think he really thinks it's wrong, or do you think that it's what his father would have thought was wrong? So maybe we think about that as we go forward. When Biddy leaves, I decide to try Mother again. She's still at the table, and I join her. She smiles at me. Biddy has promised shepherd's pie for supper. She's got a pan baking just for us. Shepherd's pie is a favorite of mine. Mother thinks the promise of something more than cheese for our evening meal will distract me. It does not. I'm glad Biddy eases your distress, I say. She knows how to laugh even now, says Mother. Of course, she does not suffer as we do. A slave is a slave, war or not. Mother reaches out to put her hand over mine. Biddy knows suffering, Joey. Your father bought her for me because she was being sold away from her husband over near Waxhaw. I saw her on the auction block and felt sorry for her and wanted to keep her near. She had a babe in her arms, a little girl just the age of my James. What became of the child? Died one night in her sleep. Mother's eyes closed for a moment. It was summer, and I woke to Biddy's screams coming from the quarter. I went for her. Our friendship began so. She's lucky to have so kind a mistress, I say. Mother shakes her head. No, Joey, I can't say a human being who is bought and sold is lucky. Do you know what I heard another woman slave tell Biddy about the baby? She does not wait for my response, but her voice grows low. Well, that be one sweet brown baby won't ever have her heart ripped out when they sells her from her mammy's arms. 16 years ago that was, but I can still hear those words, every syllable and tone just as they were spoken. Mother gets up to walk about, but she has more to say. I'm pondering a return to my Quaker beliefs. When this war is over, I may see that all slaves in this house are freed. I do not say so, but I'm thinking that my father would have no part in such a foolish idea, nor would he want any member of his family to befriend a redcoat. I look at Mary, who is now on the floor with George and Sarah. She feels my gaze and glances up. Her expression is still angry. Not all redcoats are cruel men, Joey. I want them to lose the war and give back our house. I want Father to come home, but they're not all bad men. Captain Harkin has a child, a baby boy whom he has never seen, says Mother from across the room. My anger explodes. He should go home then. We most certainly do not need him here. Jumping up, I accidentally knock over my chair, but I do not pick it up. I dash for the door and go out to the veranda. Come home, Father, I shout into the blue sky. Come home and set them straight. Oof. So our main character, Joey, is having some conflicts. He's trying to figure out what does he think is right. He's got his father with one perspective. He's got his mother with another perspective. His sister is in there as well, and he's trying to figure out where he believes and what is right, trying to hold on to the old ways, but also seeing that some change is necessary. What do you think that means when Biddy lost her baby and the other woman who's enslaved said that that's at least one baby whose heart won't be broken by being sold? What is that telling us about the experience of being an enslaved person at this time? So I love the character of Joey's mom, because she's pointing out that when her son thinks that it doesn't matter to a slave if there's war happening, I love how she steps in and she just says, of course she is suffering, and points out some things he might have never really thought about. But yeah, it's a tough experience. Okay, so I think I'm going to read another chapter, but I'll put it in another video next. So I'll see you guys next time, and don't forget to do something to help your family. Do something kind, clean something, and try to see if you can do it without claiming it that you did it. Try to see if you just do one nice thing and keep it anonymous that you did it. That could be kind of fun. All right, you guys, I will see you in the next video. Bye.